Zindabad, 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 Zindabad.
But there's a chauvinist government in India that's using nationalism, right, and using the threat of Muslim terrorism and things like that for its own agenda, just as the American government is using the threat of ISIS to further the power of the American empire, right? And I mean, okay, students say things. I mean, American students said things during the Vietnam War against the American empire, you know, and lots of things, but you have freedom of speech to say things, right? It's when the police come around to you, Sonny, and say, did you go to a revolutionary meeting in Unite Union? Was Mike Tring there? And, you know, he also was saying things, was Diego there, right? And then suddenly, you know, what you're thinking, what you're saying, becomes sedition. Well, be careful, because they might hang a terrorist first, but then they might hang a trade union leader next. What religion are you? Is it good enough?
I'm going to say that I know anything about India. What I know a little bit about is the rise of fascism in Germany and what the crucial difference is between a fascist regime and a repressive bourgeois regime, and if you read the Trotsky book, it is instructive of that, you know, the struggle against fascism in Germany. It's instructive in that regard, because he was screaming, because the Communist Party was treating Hitler's party as simply another right-wing bourgeois party. Somebody saying, and they even adopted the slogan "After Hitler, us." On one occasion, when in an election that it looked likely that Hitler would win an election, and so that is of no consequence, because after Hitler wins, he will be discredited and it will be our turn. It's sort of a bullshit sort of confidence of things. But Trotsky was saying that fascism, the fascist movement in Germany, was radically different from any other bourgeois party in Germany because it had millions, actually millions of cadre, organized in paramilitary formations and units and militias, and they were in fact bigger than, because of the Versailles Treaty and the restrictions on, they were bigger than the German army and the police force combined. That these militias, controlled by Hitler's forces, and in Italy they had the militias also. It was a similar, before they took power, they had formed extra parliamentary forces, and they were based among the youth and the unemployed, and they were they were being trained, and they had officers from the First World War, fascist-minded officers from the First World War who could organise them into units and so. So there was no after Hitler. Once he came to power, he was able to simply base himself on this mass paramilitary force to destroy the organisations of the workers' movement. Now, the workers' movement in Germany instinctively knew, many of them, including the Communist Party, the Communist parties, they had weapons. You know, they also had some militias, and they fought the fascists on the streets and tried to, you know, because there was a contest for control among these forces under the Weimar Republic. There was a contest of forces, and there was some preparation for the inevitability of an armed clash between the workers' movement and the fascists. And many unions had weapons in their armories. They had, and the Communist Party had weapons, and factories had hidden weapons, and they were waiting, when they appointed the Chancellor, they were waiting for the call to come out and fight, and the call never came out to fight. The only way to defeat fascism, and it's also why it's important not to be dismissive of bourgeois democratic rights. You know that if, despite the limits, and fighting to protect them, whether it's freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, they're not to be sort of these things are not that these things are somehow unemployment because it's all a bourgeois dictatorship. But it's true. You know, we're all living under a bourgeois dictatorship. But it's true. But these things become weapons in our fight for freedom. So all bourgeois governments are repressive. All bourgeois governments lock up union organisers. All bourgeois governments restrict the press. All bourgeois governments, depending on what they can get away with, depending on the level of the class struggle, depending on the relationship of forces between the classes, they do what they can do, right? To limit things. But fascism is a qualitatively superior, if you like, or a qualitatively more intense form of dictatorship that involves the extermination of the labour movement. Right? So and not just of the labour movement, because they're the principal target. It's actually the extermination of all bourgeois democracies, including other bourgeois parties, including Christian trade unions, including whatever they are simply exterminated. So generally, the fascist option, and the third world countries it's different. I'm not sure, but in advanced capitalist countries, the fascist option, like in Spain, like in Germany, like in Italy, it's usually at a point where the ruling class has lost confidence or lost its. The bourgeois democratic option is the cheaper option in a sense for them. So long as you can do it, you can get away with it. You can. It's at least you can. Because you let them in, and you might get your head chopped off too. It's not even if you're a bourgeois, even if you're a big factory owner or whatever it is, you let them in, then you're not particularly safe. So they generally only turn to the fascist option when it's very clear that they're going to be destroyed by the workers' revolution, and that's what was happening in Germany. The left-right vote was being polarised, and the Communist Party was progressively gaining even on the electoral level, but not just on the electoral level, but in the trade union, particularly among the unemployed workers. The Communist Party was gaining in strength election after election, and was competing with the Social Democrats more directly for being the majority party within the working class at the same time as fascism was rising at that level, and the bourgeoisie was terrified. They were terrified of the rising class struggle. So at that point, they went and tapped the shoulder of Hitler to become Chancellor, and Hitler knew exactly what he was doing when he, in theory it was, even then in theory he didn't have a majority of the cabinet, but he had his people in the police and other apparatus, but more importantly, he had a couple of million armed militia that he didn't need. He didn't need anything. That's all you need. And you impose your will. So one of the things, because the fascist option. In third world countries, generally you tended to have military-type dictatorships, and which have had sort of almost sometimes a fascist character in terms of like the dictatorships in Chile, or which and in Argentina, and at least the first sort of few decades, they have a tinge of, they have a smell of fascism about them in terms of the depth of the extermination of the depth of the dictatorship and the extermination, even though they weren't not based on a mobilized middle class, but in terms of the destruction of bourgeois democratic norms and functioning, that they did have a similarity, I think, but they weren't based. They were based on the military high command, and not the mobilised petty bourgeois. Again, it's specific. So the depth of the destruction is similar, but it's not on this. It's not, in my view, not the same. It might not be important what the difference is on a certain level because of but again underscores also the importance not to be dismissive of these rights and the importance of protecting and defending them to the and to reach out to everybody who's interested. That the United Front doesn't extend just to the. Also, I don't think to the. Because it does. We should be reaching out to middle class and other labor, whatever, whoever, who see that for finish on with the Trump phenomenon, right? Because Trump is.
What were those characteristics again?
Yeah, Trump fits a lot of that. Yes. Right? Absolutely, Trump fits a lot of that.
It's the Mexicans.
But if he gets elected, he does not have 2 million armed men under supervision.
Are you sure?
Yeah. He's the president of an imperialist state. He becomes the president of an imperialist state. It's not the same, in my view. It's not the same at all. Yes, he's a right-wing demagogue. Yes, he's the rhetoric, is racist and he proclaims his belief in torture, support for torture, whatever. But he has no political movement. Right? He will simply become the executive. The executive of the imperial state, and he'll appoint like every president before him. Every president ever in the United States, they'll go, oh, who's my cabinet? Oh, Goldman Sachs. Who's the minister? Who's the minister of housing? Oh, somebody from Realty Plus, or they appoint the ruling class to their cabinet, and they do the business. And that's what will happen when he gets elected. I don't think.
No, he won't be. No.
The problem, you see, because he doesn't have 2 million people, if he was elected, he's the president of an imperialist army that's 1/3 Latino and 25% black, and even the officer corps is black and Latino and stuff. The first meeting when they go, they will turn up. They'll sit down and go, what are we going to do? Are we going to build a wall with Mexico? No, that ain't going to happen, I think, but, that's my view.
All right, guys, we're nearly here at the 2-hour mark, so it's been pretty instructive. But I just wanted to we'll wrap it up soon, but I just wanted to look at a positive example of how the threat of fascism was fought in history, because there's many horrible examples. Mike mentioned Chile and
being executed,
Greece and Spain, Portugal, and all those ones. But I lived for a while in London. London's a great multicultural city at the minute. There's lots of different cultures living together. And in the 70s, it wasn't like that. In the 70s and the 80s, there were a lot of swastikas on the walls, National Front, NF, I remember it written everywhere. And gay people were being killed, Paki bashing, targeting, killing of Indians, killing of black people, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish written on the stuff. Irish people want to be hung as terrorists. when he was talking about that, Sonny Hinson's remembering, you know, hang the Irish, you know, that's what they wanted, put them in jail, why can't we kill them, you know, lots of innocent people, lots of innocent Irish people actually ended up in prison for a long time because of you know, very nationalistic stuff, and the National Front was part of that, you know. Thatcher kind of fed off that, but was Thatcher a fascist? I don't think so. She was a right-wing bourgeois person, but there was definitely a move created in London and throughout England of a fascist movement, the National Front, right? And at one stage it got a third of the votes in London, one of the greatest, you know, multicultural cities in the world. How was it beaten? How was it beaten? It was beaten by a united front, right? Which involved socialists, which involved Labour Party members, which involved the unions, right? Some of the unions had racist leaderships beforehand, right? The first women and the first black people in fire brigades in England had their boots pissed and shattered by Nazis in the workplace, so that when they came down the, you know, on the emergency and put their boots on, there was shit and piss in the boots, right? Those workers refused to work with fascists. They went on illegal wildcat strikes, saying we're not working with Nazis in our workplace, and forced them out of the workplace, right? But there was a movement which mobilized hundreds of thousands of people, right? Through the Anti-Nazi League and other things, Rock Against Racism, like Mike says. We shouldn't limit it just to the left. The struggle has to be cultural, reach out to things like music, you know? And if you look at reggae and punk, you know, creating new music like two-tone, ska music, right? This happened in London where races came together, where black and white, Bob Marley talks about it, punky reggae party, right? Black and white people uniting to fight the enemy, because in the end they understood that the Nazis, if they came to power, would destroy our unions, yeah? Would destroy our love, right? If you were gay, right? They would kill gay people. Conquer my country, right? I'm Irish, but I know they hate me. And that movement, and many black people in Britain write about it, that it changed the culture of England as we know today. That not only did it stop this small but emerging fascist party, but it won the argument, you know, by and large about multicultural Britain. You know. So it's a fantastic little example from history that I think other movements could look at, you know, how they built the mass movement against fascism. And normally Malcolm has about 10 million copies of the pamphlet. We can't find one of them here tonight. But yeah. Anybody else want to
Could we take for the comrade? Yeah, person.
As very good explanation.
Good. Thanks very much.
Yeah, let's give the comrades a round of applause.